Hi everyone. Hi Andrew. Hi Tim.
Consider
Uh,
phone high.
Hi.
okay. Today is a transformation talk for integrated business planning series. This is a third episode already. Today we will talk about supply chain planning, management, and solution. So what we talk about story today about goal and benefit that I will ask Tim and Andrew. Then we will talk about how to success implement. That is very important because it's many organization when they implement they expect to succeed, but most of them is 70% is fail. Today we will discuss about that. And the third one, what is secret of success to implement the solutions for planning perspective. Uh, Tim, what do you think is most of organization when they need to do for planning integration or planning solution? What is goal and benefit for organization that they expect for?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Siddharth. It's there are many potential goals that businesses can get from integrated business planning, and for me, one of the most important things that the business can do is pick the financial goal that is low hanging fruit, but is
Mm,
something very tangible for the business. So it's easy to say, "Oh, we'll have better management practices, we'll have better clarity, we'll have better forecast accuracy, we'll have better inventory control." Lots of things we can assign to it, but it's very hard when you're in the business to get excited unless we have, for example, a very measurable target, like we're going to reduce our inventory by $10 million this year, or we're going to increase our service levels from 90% to 93%. Very specific goals allow the business, everyone in the business, to understand a benefit, and that allows you to get behind. And you'll find that you harvest a lot of benefits, even though we're focusing on one benefit. Well, when we try and if we just want to do IBP because everyone else is doing IBP, I've never seen a good implementation unless we have very tangible business-focused goals.
right.
So for me, that's a common pitfall that many businesses don't. They do it because they want to do IBP, where they should have short-term measurable goals. And if you're interested, I can show you. There's different ways that people put in technology, and I'll just share a quick slide with you if I can, because I think for me, this really explains it. Now, let me share my screen.
Right. Because most of organization, I think is they have pain point when they do is a sales and planning operation meeting. They have is stuck on the what is a right consensus or something. That is their problem. So they need to do is what is more efficient, what is visualization and transparency data for quick decision, something like that. I think
Yeah,
it's many organization they that the big pain point.
you're absolutely right, and the point that I'm kind of alluding to is, if you think about value delivered by different types of programs that are run. This is particular to software, but it applies to the whole IBP process, which is not just software. But when people are looking at software, sometimes they get a drop and run. You give us the software and we'll take care of it. And other times,
Right.
I want to make sure that the forecasting works, or that the capacity planning works, or my the control tower it works and it has the right KPIs, and it's a functional focus. And few businesses think about that we need the behavioral focus, and we actually want to be using the tools and making the right decisions and different decisions. And then the final and the highest value is when we start looking at results focused, where you're looking at, I'm trying to get my inventory down to 30 days cover from 45 days, or I'm trying to improve our delivery performance from 45% to 95% to 98% for my A-class customers. These results driven focus transcend people worrying about whether they fully understand what IBP is and whether they've decided all the nuances. It allows everyone to get behind it, and for me, that's very important aspect of any of these programs that the IBP or the components of IBP. if you have a big business goal that's tangible and doesn't require deep understanding of IBP, it allows everyone to get involved before and through that process they'll start to learn what the IBP is and their role in it.
Right. I think that is important for organization. Andrew, may you share experience because it's most of organization when they expect to have is a planning and scheduling tool in their organization to improve our supply chain is corporate planning. What the real outcome for organization should get when they do for supply chain planning solution?
Yeah, there's multiple things that they should be aiming for, but I think one of the biggest things is clearly hitting the business case that they've put forward in order to actually go and do this. So you can improve processes, you can do certain things, but if you're not achieving the goals, you'll achieve some goals through those things. But when you're actually looking at a larger implementation and including software, then you've really got to be hitting certain goals. And I think that's where your business case is really important, because what you have to be able to do is show that you're actually going to get something out of this rather than just spend some money. There has to be a target to hit. Whether it's inventory reduction is always the big piece that people look at. But also, I think the other point that people miss a lot is actually better ways of working up and down the value chain. So, you connect with your suppliers better, you connect with your customers better, you connect internally better. And sometimes they're a little less tangible as well. But what they will do ultimately is give benefits to the business. But I think, leading on from Tim's point, you've got to be able to say, here is what we're going to do and what it's going to do for the business, because it's all about return on investment. You can't always maybe get a dollar for dollar immediately. One of the things that generally I see happen is that you go through a process where it's not so much that it's not working, but you have a right sizing exercise to go through as you change these things. And you may see some of these targets not being hit as quickly because you've been a little bit too aggressive, or you're just going through a little bit of a right sizing. And it's got to be done quickly, but you've got to stick with it. But also you have to continue with it as well. Far too often what we see is people leaving a business and new people coming in with different ideas or a different way of working, or do not understand what they're stepping into. And you kind of get a bit of a reverse cycle of, you'll get a whole bunch of benefits, but what will happen is they will stop coming because you haven't trained the people coming in behind you, or the staff are reverting back to type and not using the system as well as they should. So, from that point of view, you should be measuring as you go along as well, but you should be contingency planning for those sorts of things as well.
Okay. Thanks for your question. When we look at the most of organization before they implement supply chain for planning and scheduling software, they do in their solution by Excel. Most of them have many resource planning, product planning, and also delivery planning by their own from I think it's for planner they should look like it's a smart guy, but when they do like software, what the benefit compare from time approach, because some organization they miss order from customer because they take time to review plan, then they miss order from customer side. How fast for planning scheduling tool can answer the question on that, Tim?
Yeah, that's a really good observation, and there's so many layers to this. Firstly, when businesses grow and planners start building their own planning answers in Excel, we refer to it less. You end up with an Excel ghetto. It's like a house that keeps growing and growing, but very rickety, not a good foundation. And for me, when you start relying on your planning in Excel and get more and more planners on, the problem, it's in one respect, it's good that they're developing prototyping solutions to get answers, but people that are working very late just trying to keep their Excel spreadsheets working and alive and answering the questions they need to, they're focusing on modeling and they're not focusing on answering what the customers need or what the business needs. They're just racking their brain on how they're going to deal with right now. And while we see some wonderful ingenuity, but invariably those people get stuck in their spreadsheets. They're not able to grow beyond them. And you're paying them to maintain spreadsheets where most of your planners, and typically they're reacting in their spreadsheets, where what we want our planners to be doing is looking ahead and seeing what's coming, what customers might need, what material we might need, what labor, and making forward decisions. But invariably when they're in Excel, they're trying to report answers that are almost just too late. And I'm yet to find a person that's always very proud of the Excel spreadsheets they build. But and I'm proud of them too. But it's very, very uncommon for somebody who's built an Excel spreadsheet and they're trying very hard to answer all the business problems. They can't tell you how many problems they're missing. They don't know, and it's painful to admit. But the system's not robust. And if those people leave, or if they get hit by a bus, or if they go on holiday, people come after them, try and pick up their spreadsheet. They cannot manage it. And the better the spreadsheet, the harder it is for somebody else to come in and support that when the other people are on leave. So you have a very not robust solution, and you'll never know what's being missed because the people who need to be looking at that have too much ownership in the solutions they've built. When we take that, when we free them from that obligation of maintaining the spreadsheets, and we give them tools that are designed to solve these problems reliably and across a broad base of customers, and then we configure it with them to answer the problems that your business needs answering, they're liberated. We talk about liberate planning so that they can go from reacting and just trying to get the master data right and trying to keep these Excel beasts fed. We now free them from that and allow them to see where there are problems and think about how am I going to solve my customers' needs with the material I've got, with the resources I've got. And that's what we employ planners for. So for me, that's the biggest benefit. Firstly, is that your resources are people that are smart enough to build spreadsheets. I want them to apply all that smarts to satisfying my customers, not building spreadsheets and maintaining spreadsheets. And what we find when we've got tools that are designed purposely for this in a very robust way, you know that when there are problems, you immediately see there are problems. When if the tool was not working right, they've got somebody to call. It's not up to them to do it when they get a chance. They get straight on the phone and they get support from us. So it's it repositions your planners to plan, to not become IT resources. And it's a really important thing that we don't let our planners have to rely on Excel. It's good if they can do it, but it's bad if we rely on them doing it.
Right. I observe with many organizations. You can imagine when we have Excel planning scheduling, it's too many data, too many numbering on screen. Some planner they have is a big screen on the table for work. But for planning scheduling tool, I think is this is visualized. You have is a color, is a visual. This is green, this is red, to ensure that is more effective for them. How is efficient on this team for visualize for the planning staff when they work with the software like this?
Yeah, it's if you can see a constraint, you can manage it. If you can't see it, you can't manage it. I've actually got a screen grab I'll share with you in a moment that shows a business I'm working with now, where until a few weeks ago, until we started showing them and visualizing their plant and the plan even just for the next week, they thought the plans that they were issuing were good, and they thought that their factory was running at 45% OEE because they had lots of breakdowns. They do not have lots of breakdowns. They have lots of
Uh-huh.
waiting for planned materials, but
Okay.
it's a dairy, and you can't easily see the material because everything's happening in stainless steel pipes.
Mm.
And crews are waiting there, and they blame milk availability, so it's someone upstream. But these were avoidable constraints,
Right.
and that when you visualize, and everyone in the team can visualize, you can get everyone behind the plan. Something really magical happens when people don't trust the plan in a factory. We see that there is in the order of 10 percentage points reduced efficiency just by having a reliable plan. And the reason I say this is, if you get a sequence of the job and it said, okay, I know I've got a changeover starting in about half an hour. That's what my plan says. So I should, if I was proactive, I could get all the material out for the next changeover, make sure that the warehouse has already staged the material, and be ready to go like a pit stop. But in factories where the plant is always changing, where the planners are always changing the plan, nobody pre-stages work. Nobody prepares for the next changeover because there's no guarantee that work will be rewarded. So warehouse doesn't pick the material. The engineering does not get the tools ready because they just wait.
Right.
Because they know if they get it ready, then they never use that. They put that back away, and it's just, oh, why bother? So there's this real camaraderie and teamwork that happens when you can rely upon the plan, when it's fixed for several days or for a week, and you kill that when you keep having to reissue the plan because no one follows it, or because you can't trust, you don't have the constraints model. When it's visualized, everyone knows, oh, okay, this plan looks real. We know we can get behind it, or they can discuss it and understand challenges. So visualization, really important, and almost never done in Excel. I've not seen a good
Right.
example.
Right. I think that is more quick and more is learning because color better than numbering.
Yeah.
Right. Andrew, may you can share how know is a success when they implement, because it's normally is most of organization they have KPI performance, and what is a KPI or efficient when they have is a solution implement and on their organization.
You know what, my most important KPI to me is when we do these things is that overtime goes down by about 50% or 100%, or you've got no overtime at all, because you've got no one sat there until midnight trying to rearrange numbers, trying to second guess, trying to do these things. But it's not a KPI that a lot of people measure.
Right.
Particularly because in a lot of businesses they don't pay overtime anyway. But if you can go back and you can ask someone and say, are you leaving the office at 6 o'clock now, not 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night? To me,
Right.
that's a massive win, because that tells me that the efficiencies are coming into the system. There's trust in the system, and that it's actually working. I mean, you can look at your traditional KPIs, as Tim said. You talk about it like a pit stop. So if you look
Right.
at it like a changeover, and your changeover times go from 45 minutes to an hour down to 10 or 15 minutes, you know you're doing well. So you've got to pick some KPIs that will actually tell you that things are getting better, that the operation's getting better. The traditional ones are easy to go and measure, but you've got to be a little bit more creative to go and have a look and make sure that this is giving you some benefits that are still tangible, very tangible benefits. Changeover times, over time, people that are going to burn them out, that are going to make them unhappy and unsatisfied with their role. I mean, some of the most unhappy people, if you go into different places, are the planners, because they're the poor guys that are really copping it in the neck when things go wrong. So for me, some of those different KPIs are some of the things that we potentially should be looking at.
Okay. Some organization in some industry, for example, in automotive, they will have a projection maybe 3 or 5 year. The important thing for them is resource management, because sometimes they need is if it's low season, they don't need too much people. In high season, they don't enough people to do. Maybe they have subcontract to do, and also sometimes big barrier is they not invest machine or live production on time. That's a big issue. So when they have is a projection on that is how is a planning scheduling software can help to more predict in long-term perspective and mid-term perspective. Tim, can you share your experience to improve for customer like that?
Yeah, some of the biggest improvements that we see in businesses is when we help them firstly establish a longer range planning, an IBP or an SOP horizon that's at least 12 months out and commonly 18 or more months, 18 months to 5 years. And what happens once, if we do this in an integrated way, then two things happen. One is we continually refine the correctness of the model by using recent production data to update rates, update lead times, and so on. And so you know that the system is being recalibrated, and in a good system and in a good process, we're constantly checking and making sure that our assumptions are being validated before we go and look out 12 months or 24 months.
Right.
And the other part of a really good integrated system takes these long-range plans where we're starting to look at, when do we start pre-building for a peak season, or given changes in the market forces, when do we need to divest or increase our capacity and our crewing and so on. And the more confidence we can have in those numbers, the more that we can make the better decisions. But one of the interesting things is when people try and do this in Excel, it's normally you see people preparing for a SOP process. It might take supply chain planners 3 weeks of a month to do one scenario. But the very best plans, we don't do one plan. We make it really fast to reload all your assumptions and then run alternatives. And nowadays it's called digital twin. Having a digital twin, that is emulating your real environment. We call them digital clones because you can have many as you want. But you take a plan that's already calibrated based on your recent performance, and then you adjust that plan in various scenarios and compare the scenarios, and you very quickly get a sense of how stable this plan or this forecast of performance is. So when you're doing budgeting or when you're doing your monthly SOP, it's really common for us to run scenarios like, what happens if the FX changes and we choose to start buying raw materials out of India versus China or versus America, and what does that do to our lead time? And what does that do to our required stock holding? And you can start running those to ground and seeing what happens. Or what if we lose this market to a competitor? What does that look to our cost base? How will we handle that? And running the scenarios, when you've got people in a manual environment, they pull their hair out going, what are you talking about? I am overwhelmed trying to do one plan. But once you start having your business estimate and it's easy for you to run scenarios, they become like a playbook in sport. That if I've already planned for what happens if in my case, the Australian dollar drops to this level, or what happens if my supply from China dries up and they're not giving me the lead times that I need. If I've already planned where else I'm going to supply from, I don't have to wait for the next SOP cycle. I don't have to wait to get the CFO's approval. I already have a playbook that says when this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And it makes your business responsive, incredibly responsive. Businesses that don't run to playbooks and don't have the ability to run alternative scenarios quickly, you find them, they're very slow to turn. It's like a big ship in the ocean, just going to one plan, moving along, crunching along, and maybe 3 or 4 months later they realize, oh wow, we've got to deal with the fact that shipping is 5 times the cost it was a year ago, and we can't get materials from our suppliers where we're used to. They're very slow to react. Businesses that are running plans frequently and running scenarios and investing in those scenarios by elaborating them in terms of a set of how we're going to respond over this next month if these conditions occur. Here's our best estimate on what we think is going to happen, and these are our outlying conditions. They're already prepared and they are very agile, and you see them time and again. Our clients that are running multiple scenarios are the ones that they're absolutely leaving their competitors behind, because they're ready to seize opportunities and they're ready to stem the bleeding when there's a problem, and they seize opportunities when they arise. It's really exciting, and it can only be done when you've got it's a light touch to run scenarios, and that's the power of having a digital twin. And a digital twin only works if it's calibrated and if it's sensible and if you can trust the output. And we do that by having it continually how it's tracking.
Okay. I saw some observation in some organization. They use this planning tool by the Excel. They build by their own so long. When implement solution for planning scheduling for them, they feel some feature function not fit with them. How flexible or standardized customization for the customer? Because it's normally we suggest most of customer to follow standard program, but is in terms of not fulfill some industry or not compete fit with them. What you suggest for flexible bit for this gap?
Yeah, our approach and my belief is normally the processes can be picked up and moved between businesses. So
Right.
the process of a demand review, the process of doing a SOC review, the process of looking, at different scenarios during a SOC or an IBP review, having the key senior managers all together and sharing the outcomes so that they're all committed to it and they're using one set enough. These are generic and are not business specific. And even those, if you're in a business that has one factory and it's got one line, it's a big paper mill, they may not need to run capacity plans. It just may not be relevant to them. So even then, sometimes you can deviate, but mostly the processes are common. And in almost every case, there'll be specifics about the industry that you need to cater for. So our approach is we want to, if we don't change it, if we don't improve the processes, we won't improve the outcomes. Computers can make it faster, but you have to be having different conversations in your management team. You have to be making better decisions and more informed decisions to run the business better. But to do that, we need to do things differently. And in my mind and in our approach, we agree what we're chasing. We design the processes and make sure the processes will deliver that information. And then we kind of support those processes by shaping the software to make those processes easy to run. The easiest, Andrew alluded to this before, that people will, you get a win and then it will slide back a little bit as people move on. If you make the right way of doing the job the easiest way to do a job, people will keep doing it. Right? If that's the easiest way, and that's really easy to do if you can shape the software, because you make the software support the sensible process. If your software is really hard to use, and I've seen people labor trying to do things in their ARPs, and they spend 8 hours to update data just so that they can go and run the job on a machine that they want to, they'll drop it into Excel and they'll go outside the system because it's too hard. So the best thing we can do as system providers is make it, doing a job the right way, make that the easiest way, and you barely need to train people. And that's a very long-winded way of saying, in my opinion, and our approach is you must be able to shape the software to cater for the business's requirements, but you can learn the processes and the processes that work and the management focus that works from any business and pick those. You still want to pick the ones that work for your immediate needs, but there's a lot to be learned, and every industry has its own specifics that you must cater for as well.
Right. That I think some organization is we need to teach them, we need to train them. Andrew, what do you think? Because some organization they don't understand well about the software, how it's work. In terms of is a consulting perspective, what we should consult them, what we should train them or lead them to change to follow the software solution to ensure that is a right solution and short lead time to implement success.
Yeah, and it's an interesting and it's an age-old dilemma. I've fortunately or unfortunately been in and around this for 20 plus years, and I haven't seen anyone do it spectacularly well yet. I've seen people do it well. I've seen people do it very badly. I think, as you said before, Kunsidaporn, software is not built on bad practice. It's generally built on good practice. And there's always the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of it is going to fit, 20% is not. And the 20% of the nuance is where you really need to put your efforts in order to help people understand. But also from a consulting point of view, you need to understand them. I can't tell you how many clients I've been to over the years who tell me that they have a unique business. Honestly, putting fizzy water into a bottle is the same all over the world.
Right.
It's not rocket science. Yes, there will be nuances. Yes, you will have different things that drive your business that is different to someone else's. And as Tim said, different industries will have different requirements. I think, you listen to Tim around, let's just take the dairy industry, or even, the fresh food industry, where it's a very supply-driven supply chain, because you can milk the cows, and until you milk the cows, you don't know how much milk you're going to get. So,
Right.
you've got to, there are definitely those nuances. I think people do need to spend more time understanding each other and the software. I've spoken to clients who have repeatedly told me they know exactly what this piece of software does and how to use it, but they're not looking at it from a point of view of what it means to them later on. And that's why generally with software, you've got configuration and then you've got core. And you should not, generally the more you mess around with core code, the more you mess around with these things, the more trouble you get into later. The more you can use configuration to get around it. And the other point here is people have got to ask themselves why. I call it the 3-year-old approach, which is I just keep asking why until someone actually tells me what the real problem is. Because generally it's not the software, it's the process, or it's the business itself. So I will say to them, why do you do it this way? Oh, we've done it this way forever. Not a good enough answer. You got to keep digging deeper and deeper, because eventually what you'll get to is, oh, it's because this department don't give us the data we need in a timely manner. Okay, so now let's go and look at the root cause of the problem, not try and reconfigure or remodel a multi-million-dollar system because your planning department doesn't operate as efficiently with another department, or you don't get along with another department well. That's not a good reason to do that. So, but there does have to be a balance. I think every software implementer will go in and tell you one of two things. Let's do this fast and let's do it vanilla. And I don't think there's ever such thing as a vanilla. Or depending on, and this is where you've got to pick a partner for delivery as well in of the software, because you may get a partner that the more complicated it gets, guess what? The longer they're there, the more fees you pay, and the harder it is for people to understand what's going on. So, there's a lot of nuance in there, but I think, generally simpler is better. But there will be complexities, but they can always be worked through.
Right.
If I can, one of the I absolutely agree with what Andrew's saying, and one of the reasons why I'm so experienced and so adamant about needing a financial reason to peg your transformation programs on is, if we know that we're chasing $10 million of inventory that we couldn't get to last year, or if we're trying to reduce changeovers by $1 million, or we're trying to increase our customer base in this area by X, Y, and Z, we now have some practices that we haven't done in the past, and therefore when we go and ask, we start working with people and they want us to keep doing stuff the way that they did it, we've all got a reason to be able to say, yeah, if we keep doing what we did, we'll get what we got. Is that what we need to get that extra to get to where we're going? Because no one in the organisation can deny that if we keep doing what we did, we're not going to get a different result. And sometimes you need to shake people out of that, because everyone wants it to be the other department that changes. And if you let them, and particularly because we're so flexible with our software, we don't have one solution for every customer. We want to understand what's important to their business and to them. But if we allow the end users to tell us what they want, they don't mean to. There's no malice involved, but they'll end up explaining to us what they currently do in their Excel spreadsheets. And they're very proud. I'm very proud of what they've done. But we don't want to institutionalize that, because that's not going to be it's not going to give any improvement to the business. And and that's why I keep coming back to, we have to have a compelling reason to change so we can challenge some of these habits when it's important. Now, when I'm talking and when we're working with customers that are starting, for example, on an ERP upgrade, that perhaps the only reason for doing an ERP upgrade is because their old one is out of date and and it's not supported anymore, so they have to do an upgrade. I still deeply encourage them to do a business review of your deep processes, the ones that are most critical to your business, and make sure that and you can articulate what are the deliverables that make your business unique. Because if they get vanillaized when you're implementing the new ERP system, you've lost your reason for being a successful business. However, if they can be accentuated and amplified, then you're going to continue to be successful and perhaps more successful. But most of, like Andrew said, 80% of everything you do, it doesn't matter whether your whether your invoices are still printed on a dot matrix or whether they go by email. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But at least be ready to answer those questions honestly and deeply about what are the things that we need to preserve and must be embraced or supported, and what are the things that kind of not going to make a big difference to the industry. Businesses get overwhelmed by and very excited about their brand new system, but it does my head in when I hear people say, gee, we're only using 5% of SAP's capabilities, and I'm not beating up SAP. It could be QAD or Oracle or whatever. And it does my head in because your job isn't to use every feature in SAP. It's SAP's job to support your business. Right, and we're not clear on that. We get very excited about buying a new bit of software as managers, but we lose the fact that, hang on, our business has real needs here, and some of them can be commoditized and excellent if they can, and some should not be commoditized and should be preserved or amplified. And it's a really important part of that. We talked the other week about you need to have your systems, you need to have your skills, you need to have your structure, and over that you must have a compelling reason for doing any software or any transformation program. As long as you've got that guiding light, you can wrestle some of those changes. Sorry, you've got one soapbox.
Right. Okay. And also, I think it's a very important thing. How can better answer to customers for fast delivery? Better is decision support in sales and planning. What do you think is software can help in terms of data sharing or cooperate for each other in internal organization? What do you think on this to improve?
Yeah, it's one of the huge benefits of an IBP program. For us, I can't think of the last time we delivered deep, profound value to a business that didn't include us improving the information we're giving to the users. And it starts with, if individual users are equipped with the information they need, when they make if they've got the rich information they need to make the decisions, they can see the cost and consequences of every choice, then they barely need to involve other people. That information may have come from other departments, but you can move really, really fast and make better decisions just because you don't have to chase data. So one of the most profound things we can do with technology that has not been possible in the past is presenting the right information at the right place at the right time. Now that's the height of simplicity, but it's also it's very, very hard to get there in all cases. But you'd know Sitapon from dashboards in a factory that show the runtime of having a red light on top of a machine when it's stopped and an orange light when it's in changeover. These simple visual cues we've known for many years now. It's a fantastic way to run a factory. It's also a fantastic way to run an office and an integrated or multi-site business. Control towers or allow managerial views in the same way. But every time, in my opinion, every time we've got key decisions like what am I going to run next on that machine, or what product, if I can only make 100 tons today, what decisions am I using to make sure I'm making the right 100 tons? I'm going to satisfy the right customers. These are decisions that we want to make sure that you don't have to go chasing through 7 different screens and talk to 5 different customers dynamically. You need all that information at once so you can make decisions fast. And once you enable people to do that, you gave the example earlier on that you might have, you might have 10 people working in Excel all doing purchasing, and it's very, very common to see businesses just say, "Oh, I'll just employ another 2 purchasers because we're overwhelmed, we're not purchasing the right stuff." And those businesses, you walk through the warehouses and everything's covered in dust. and there's trucks arriving all the time, there's more material, but you don't seem to have what you need. If you have one person with the right information and a system that's doing the clerical work for them, and they're making considered decisions about what I'm buying, how much stock I need, and what's the right amount of safety stock and what the right amount of coverage. If you've got just one or two people who are skilled and armed with the right information, they will beat 10 people every day of the week. And you'll end up with a small fraction of the inventory and waste that you do otherwise. And it's one of the real areas that we see the most exciting. When you see this done well, information presented to people that are skilled enough to know what to do with it, and you've got the management processes around that to make sure that continues and doesn't slip if new people come on board. That's exciting. That's really, really honed businesses that will dominate their market. And that's what the right information, the right place can do. And that's where software's got an enormous place. You still need the business processes around it. You still need managers asking the right questions and leading and motivating their team to do the right thing, but and not distracting them from doing silly shit. But yeah, it's a really powerful step change that you see between organisations that are still doing piecemeal, working in silos, working in Excel, and businesses that are shaping the information available at any point in time.
Okay. That important thing, something is Andrew, how is when they need to invest to buy the software solution, what is return of investment benefit compared with the previous process for Excel planning by many staff for planning? Could you suggest how can measure return of investment result for the software solution can improve organization on this?
Yeah, look, there's some very simple ones, right? Is to take inventory levels and just see them go down. Look at the number of planning staff, and whether it be redeployment or whatever with staffing levels. Your business cases, but your business case has got to be generally built around other things as well. So that ROI. If you're looking at in a supply sense, then it's really about having the right things in the right place at the right time in order to ensure that everything runs smoothly. So, as I said before, it could be reduction in changeover times, as Tim said earlier. But it could also be that in your procurement area, you're seeing savings in procurement as well, because they get a better demand sense. Therefore, they can go and procure better. They can do better scenario planning. They can do better contingency planning. I think this is the other thing. So the other way to look at this is also, if I were to think of it more for a consumer industries point of view, would be stock outs. Everyone thinks about stock outs as being there's 1 million bottles of whatever it is, of bottled water in your warehouse, but there's 0 bottles in a store, so therefore you're losing out on a sale. That may not be the case. Stock outs don't begin and end with how much inventory you hold. Stock outs begin and end with how well your factory or you can build your supply vision based on your demand vision and how well you can get it to the store. So, there's a lot of things that you can base your ROI on. I think the biggest ones generally will be the ones that are most tangible within the business. But again, I would encourage people to build in not just hard and fast dollar numbers. You can also build in soft ROI as well. So, employee satisfaction is something a lot of people talk about, but they talk about it potentially in the wrong areas. Your employee satisfaction for someone on the shop floor is the fact that they are actually getting to do what they are paid to do. So I think there's other things to think about as we go through those processes.
Okay, I think so because it's many organization for digital transformation. They think about how can improve employee satisfaction. When employees are more happy, they can serve customer more happy. And
Yeah,
also, as you mentioned in resource or material is reduction is very important because some organization like food and beverage. Cost of material is quite expensive when they can control, reduce, more lean in there is a material. That is a huge number of gain benefit back.
yeah.
And also, I think this is a very important thing.
I,
Team is
I
as you are implement is many customer. I would like to ask you about what a secret of success for implementation because most of organization when they implement technology 70% is fail, only 30% is success. So what your share secret of success to implement a solution like this?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to share a slide again too that I think frames this well. And again, I think, you know, for me, I can't stress enough the overlying having a tangible goal that the whole organization can get behind
Mm,
is the first thing. Because again, it's very hard to get people excited about IBP on its own. There are a lot of soft benefits. I couldn't agree with you and Andrew more that things like the shop floor performance. If you're a printer and you're very proud of your printing quality, but the machine keeps stopping because there's no work to go on it, it is very hard to get excited about running that machine faster and, you know, producing a lower cost product. It's just, it's kind of feels like you're the only one that cares in the organization. This is not good. And the cost to the organization is often hidden when you're having low OEEs that are coming from poor planning or poor replenishment. But after you've got a compelling view, for me, you still need three things. You must have a structure where there's a wonderful saying that what interests my boss fascinates me. And what I like about that saying is it reminds us that if our boss is telling us that what's important is waste, then we're going to tend to focus on waste. If you don't, if we decide that for the business we're going to reduce inventory, for example, or change over time, whatever it is, we must
right.
have people that have single point accountability for achieving that. And that's about having the right structure. Because if your boss is telling you that waste is important and the program is trying to reduce inventory, then it's okay, you can have more than one feature, but someone's got to be reminding you that inventory is important. So the amount that we purchase is important. And it would be smart to tie that into where we don't want waste of over inventory and we don't want waste of not having inventory. So, you know, there are ways of tying this together, but we need that single point accountability. You must have the skills in place to know how to do the task that your bosses and your business structure is expecting of you. And finally, you must have systems that make it really easy to do that. And that's where you get this high impact, real results. If there's not a financial reason for doing this, then sooner or later the business will not put the resources. But you have to have a structure that can support where you're heading. People have to have the skills or they'll get very frustrated. And if you don't have the system and the system's not helping you do that comment I made before about if doing it the right way in the system is the easiest way of doing it, then people are liberated. They have much more time. If not, if they're fighting the system to do what they need to do, they're enslaved by the system. Really, really frustrating. So, and often we see people just think, oh, it's just the system's problem, or it's just the people don't have the skills. But no, all of these must work in concert. As the business focus changes, these two must change.
Right. This is most of organization try to do this. Do you have some success story in some customer that already implement? Maybe you can show in food and beverage or other industry. You have is many success case. Can you share on that?
Yeah,
What is the feedback from the customer?
I've got one here that I'll just share. Sorry, just share this. And yeah, obviously there's too many industries to cover right now, but I'll just pick one that I had on in the slide deck. Sorry, that's okay. So I'll just go back. This client we work with, they make steel cans. So Steel cans are interesting. They're very, very high material cost. 80% of the cost is just in the steel alone. So for that business, I'm not sure if I said it in this way, but for us, it's really important you do the opportunity assessment first, and we agree what we're focusing on. These guys had $100 million worth of inventory, and by our measures, they should have been working at less than $30 million of inventory. Massive, massive problem. And they had 21 people working their supply chain. And so we worked with them, and we put together a plan, and we started implementing. And I'll show you how we got there in a moment, but it reduced the inventory by $63 million. And what's important here is we were not the first choice. The management team, to their credit, decided, we've got to get inventory done. They started focusing on it. They got it down from $100 million to $90 million. They did a fantastic job. But even after that, they realized there's only so much they could do without systems. So then we helped put in systems. They had the structure right. Yes, they had accountability, but they were fighting their systems. So we implemented an IBP process with them. And I'll just step you through how that went. So basically, at the position when the new management team took over, they had $100 million, roughly 100 days of stock. We worked with them and calculated. We were invited to come in when they were at 90 million. So management focus over about a year, they were able to reduce that to 90 million, but they just didn't have the systems in place. We wanted to get quick wins, so we immediately put in a dynamic replenishment process on the raw materials. That was just using statistics because we knew it was going to take a while to get the integrated piece and start forecasting finished requirements. So we immediately put in a replenishment process that automated the material ordering, because previously they had a lot of people just trying to do it all in Excel. Even though they had SAP and they had APO, they were still making their decisions in Excel, and they were all isolated. So we gave them some tools to help, and we were able to reduce the stock. Within about 6 months, we had the stock down by $18 million. But we'd all agreed that we were chasing a $30 million, a target of $30 million. So over the course of, while we started that, we started putting in forecasting. We helped them put in a capacity planning review, and we tied that in with a master scheduling and then into execution. And I'm just going to say that mostly I see these processes going, and there's no execution path. We see businesses doing software OBP, and they get their plans about what they're going to do and where they're going to run overtime and so on, but they have no way of executing that in the real world. And often we see, oh yeah, that's great, we made these plans, and the plans should have been good, but no one told the business and the factories or the planners that they had to do something different. So for us, it's really important that's all integrated together. So when you make, like if you're steering a business, when you change direction, the car goes where you follow. So we have all of these integrated together. And by putting them together, and within 12 months of starting that process, we've got the raw material down to $27 million. The target was $30 million. That business continued to grow and flourish since then. But that whole process took, from when we started working with them, it took 18 months to get to save $63 million. The return on investment was in the thousands of percent.
Huge number.
Anything like that. Yeah, enormous. and that business has gone on and on. That the cash that it liberated allowed them to reinvest in their own factories. It made them incredibly successful where they were really, really struggling before that. It's amazing what that amount of money can do when someone can be reinvested in the organization.
Right. I think this is a huge number, because it's from 100 day to 90 day to 70 day to 30 day. That's really important. Then you can imagine if I have carries stock over half time, that is a big number. That is better than half time. What do you think is for customer perspective to learn? Because when we look at that, they have time about 6 months or 1 year to improve. Andrew, can you suggest what is journey to learning journey from the planning or supply chain staff to improve in terms of they can utilize software and better?
I think that one of the, Graham Parr, who was the supply chain manager at the time, made the comment. I think he was actually absolutely right. We helped them move from theoretical to practical. Most supply chain professionals can do the calculations that would say, 30 days is possible in that environment. But very few people are brave enough to do it, because if you stop the factory, wow, that costs more than the inventory does, and you run customers out. So you actually want to have partners that you can trust that have been here before and understand the pain that you're going through. This is scary stuff. You don't want to turn that on day one and just say, oh, we're just not going to order for the next 2 months. Watch the team pull their hair out. It's not, you have to actually take people on the journey. And that was his other point, was that you have to have system providers that will support transition your business from strategic and thinking about what to do to actually being able to execute to it. And that requires change. And I think that one of the problems with a lot of system implementers is that they spend a lot of energy on making sure they've got the right IT support and not nearly enough on worrying about, firstly, what does a business need to change, like the processes and structure, but also, making sure that the people are supported. It's not just about making the software be able to behave. If Graham wants to put the safety stock levels back up, or if he just wants to order another couple of coils of steel, each coil might be, $100,000 worth. If he wants to do that, then the inventory is going to go back up. So I've got to work with Graham to make sure that he's going to behave in a way that he's comfortable, that he's getting the right information. And that's something that we need system providers to actually be closer to the business. So for me, that's some of the, whether you work with us or somebody else, these are really, really important parts. You must look for people that are interested in your business. And a lot of businesses rely on the big four consultancies, but they're not always very interested in your business either. Sometimes they are, and there's some great people there, don't get me wrong, but at an organizational level, I haven't seen the immersion that you need to really deeply understand the process that your clients are going through and then help them through that journey.
Right. Andrew, what do you think is when they implement software to go live, what is consulting can help or mentor them to ensure they can sustain, they can utilize software better, more and more, to ensure they go in the right track? What your suggest on this?
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma because it's always about cost. So keeping consultants around or keeping people around that aren't part of your natural payroll always hurts. I think the question you've got to ask yourself is, how much is it going to hurt if it goes wrong? But to me, that support level, whether it be post go live or how long it goes on for, is really down to how well you implement. And I think Tim alluded to it. If you're not handing over properly, if you're not giving the knowledge properly, then it's bound to fall over when people leave, or they become a crutch and you keep them around for longer. So for me, I saw one client in Thailand. I can't mention who they are, but I saw one client in Thailand and another one in Vietnam who did this absolutely brilliantly with their people. They made them invested in taking on the knowledge, so that when the consultants left the building, they knew they were the super users, or they were the people who had to take on that mantle of absolutely understanding. There is no, again, everything's different in terms of longevity of support, etc., depending on complication, depending on how big it is, etc. But I do think, it's all down to how you do it as you implement. It's never really down to how long the support goes for after a go live. Of course, there's always a bedding in period, and you will always see a reduction in third party staff on premise as you've gone live, or at least a week after go live. There's always something that goes wrong over a cutover. We all know that, and 99% of the time it's usually data. But I think that for me is where people make the mistake of focusing too much on what happens when people leave, and not focusing enough on learning everything you can before they go. And that's where that whole title of super user, or and it's that throat to choke inside the business. if you don't know how to use this once the consultant has left, that's your fault. Because if you're not getting what you need out of them while the implementation's going on, that's your fault. So you should be getting what you pay for. And let me just preface that with, you do get what you pay for a lot of the time as well. So, saving on certain areas will come back and bite you later. And again, this is why budgeting and the ROI is important, is because if you are going to spend $1 million, you don't want to get $500,000 back. But if you're going to spend $1 million, I want $1 million worth of value. So, and I think it's during the implementation, people need to focus on that more, so that reality or the realization comes quicker, better, faster. Your people are happier, and everyone can get their bonus at the end of the year.
Right, exactly right. So I have still have many questions to ask. Anyways, time is run out now. So it's next episode we will continue to talk. Next episode we will talk about manufacturing planning solution, how it works, because it's a good planning already have, but its manufacturing is cannot do that, it's failed. So we will talk about that, and also I will ask more question about supply chain control tower to look at the pan overview, how it works. May we see next week together to discuss about this team, Andrew. Today, thanks so much for your time to more explanation and share your experience to improve its supply chain transformation today. Thanks so much for today. Bye bye.
As always, thanks. Take care.